Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to another adventure into reality. Tonight, I am joined once again by Juliette Karaman and her husband, Alex. Also, David Ellis will be joining us today as we are going to be talking about sex. Juliette is a consciousness intimacy coach and sensuality mentor. She is founder of the Feel Fully You movement. She is a woman with a vision to have women fully surrender and to start their journey through intimacy by fully feeling all that life has to offer. She works with women and couples stuck in long-term relationships, having lost the intimacy with themselves, with each other. They are disconnected from what they truly want. As a mother of four, she too has experienced this disassociation, seemingly having a picture-perfect life. She felt incredibly guilty about feeling hopelessly lonely underneath all that busyness of running a family. Ultimately, it ruined her health, and she spent 9 months in and out of the hospital. She realized something that needed to be changed. This started her on a path of discovery and personal development. She has certified in several coaching and sexuality modalities and makes use of these to enable her and her clients to reignite intimacy, regain confidence, and discover pleasure for themselves, often using different somatic ways to remove old stuck traumas, which make way more for a deeper reconnecting to oneself. Welcome, Juliette and Alex and David, to the show. How are you guys doing today? You got to unmute, Juliette.
Oh my goodness, unmute.
So
There you are.
can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. And Dave and Alex, you're there too. Say hello.
Yeah, hi guys. Thanks for having us too. It's a real pleasure to be here.
It's been a couple months since you on, and David, he's been on master business hiatus, and he's going to be rejoining us with shows. David, welcome back to the show.
Yes, it's always a pleasure to be here, Andrew. It's been a while. I'm looking to have some fun tonight. Yeah.
So we're going to put the show into first gear before we get on the information sexual superhighway. And what I want to do is start with Juliette. I want to break some of the common myths about sexuality, intimacy, BDSM, and different ways people can heal themselves. What is one of the biggest myths you guys would like to break first?
BDSM is only for weird people. It's for people in costumes, and yeah, most people just think it's weird.
Alex, what about you? What is the biggest myth you think people need to have broken?
I think that the biggest myth that people have to have broken in sexuality terms is that what they have is all there is.
Good one.
It's a good one. Yeah.
David, what about you? What is the biggest myth about sexuality that has to be broken?
BDSM.
I think that one of the biggest myths around sexuality is that sexuality only encompasses a small section of human behavior. It only affects a small section. The truth of the matter is that if you're not sexually healthy as an adult, you probably aren't healthy, right? And I think that people think that sex is something that's either or, you may or you may not. The fact of the matter is there are a lot of people may be able to control their sexuality. A lot of people may be able to do that. But then I suppose the biggest question is, why? Why? Expand, learn, and grow.
Man has been trying to answer why for a really long time.
Yeah.
And like a game of billiards, they're constantly trying to put a ball in the hole. It doesn't always work.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that one. That didn't go over our head.
I know.
Ball in the hole, really.
If you'll excuse the expression, right?
Exactly.
The other one doesn't fit, right?
Exactly.
Boys.
For me, one of the biggest myths that has to be broken about sexuality is not all about penetration. There's a whole other avenue that isn't about actual phallus into vagina penetration and the release that comes with it. Sexuality is all that before it and all that comes after it. And there's a tremendous myth that the penetration process is the greatest release, when in fact you could have releases without even touching.
Absolutely.
Yes, agreed.
And BDSM, acting, tools and toys are a great way of learning how to get a release that has a dopamine value behind it that isn't mechanical penetration release.
Mm.
Do you guys want to talk about that for a second? True dopamine releases in sexuality.
That's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it's dopamine is not the only thing that's released during sex, right?
Right.
So it's but what's interesting is, I think anyway, at least in my experience, and this is relatively recently for me, is to examine what's going on in a kind of somatic milieu during sex, and what happens when Juliet and I are just for example, just touching or only touching each other in a very I suppose light kind of very non kind of penetrative sort of way. And so we're just getting each other's skin going and all that sort of thing. And it fascinates me how when you start to think about what's going on inside your head, so to speak, then that changes in the course of that process. And I wonder how much, and I don't know enough about endocrinology, but I wonder how much that is due to the way in which the hormone mix in your system is altering as you're changing your activity. And I'd love to know more about that actually, but it's apparent to me.
I can help you with that.
All right, David, go for it. Yeah.
Okay, so your endocrine system is the information system.
Mhm.
A lot of people don't actually, they have sex, they have an idea of how sex works, but not really. So anatomically speaking, there is no orgasm or release, as you put it, without the mind. Okay, there is none. And a lot of people don't understand that. So if your mind is in the right place, you could literally be penetrating a tree bark and get off on it. Okay, so the mind is a very important institution. In yoga, what we tend to look at sexuality as when the mind and body connects, it is the easiest form of yoga that there is. Okay, sex is the easiest form of yoga that there is because your mind and your body are engaged in one thing. Okay,
That's true.
so in terms of the endocrine system, what happens? The mind has a thought. The thought is translated through the rest of the body. The body then translated through the gonads, they get stimulated, whether you want to say it's the root chakra, Muladhara chakra, or whatever, it gets stimulated by the thought that is in your head. And the thought that is in your head is not, oh, she has nice breasts. That's not the thought. There are two things that are happening there. One is happening at what Freud called the superconscious mind, which is the desire for procreation. Okay? It's an essential desire. The other is happening at the more the id or the midpoint, the subconscious mind, which is like, she has really nice breasts. These would feel really amazing. Okay? But the seed thought is the desire for to fulfill the procreative function. And what happens is that as a result of that, it's not even social or cultural. It is something that is primal and built onto you, like the desire for survival. So what happens is that the body responds as a result of it. Blood fills into places where it needs to fill into because the endocrine system has received the message. We are now about to continue the species in essence, right? But your mind is receiving the message. God, I like to look at this guy's cock, or I like to look at this guy's or this woman's breast. That's what your mind thinks. But in essence, what is actually driving it is something more primal. So in terms of the drugs that are released, dopamine, serotonin, okay? All of these things have to be released. And in the case of the woman, there are whole different levels of mixes and cocktails of things that are released. A lot of people are very uneducated when it comes to sex. They think, for a woman's anatomy especially, a lot of men don't know anything. I'm actually surprised to find that a lot of women also don't know their own anatomy. So one of the best things you could do for your girlfriends, if you guys are listening, is buy her one of those little handheld mirrors. And you know what I suggested that for, right? Buy one of that, right?
It's
a lot
crazy.
of people, a lot of women also don't explore that area of themselves. They've been taught not to. But if you want to become more proficient at sexuality, you need to explore. And Juliette, you can just fill in that part because
Well, absolutely. I think, women have so much shame about what we look like. It's in media, it's been laboplasty is actually one of the biggest plastic surgeons are using are performing that all the time because people think that their labia should be small or they should be looking a certain way. So it's only the last few years that actually there have been more pictures of different vaginas and different intimate parts of women. So that we get an idea that this is normal. If one lip is a bit longer than the other one, that is completely normal. The clitoris, we're actually finding out that it's much bigger than just that little nib on top, but it goes all the way back down. And it's the last few years for women's sexuality and for their anatomy, for their sexual organs, it's been a huge surge in actually finding out what we're all about, and where for years this hasn't really been known or it hasn't been taught in schools. One of the researchers is trying to get schools to have factual proper books, because the anatomy books aren't factual, aren't actual what the woman's sexual organs are, and they don't have to be in some of the states.
Yeah,
so that's very shocking.
Incredible discussion. I want to add another factor here. There's the whole cocktail that's released, and then there's the after release cocktail that goes for weeks at a time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, women have a greater effect of this cocktail affecting them for weeks after, because of their genetics are different than men. And then what I also want to add is there comes a point where, that was Dave was just saying, looking at the breast or the cock, there's a sensory overload process that enhances one's release. And the next myth I want to break is about sexual dysfunction. Women who don't have orgasms and men who are experiencing premature ejaculation, and that all of those are beatable. It's a matter of coming to terms with what's going on there. So, Julia,
I'm sorry. There's too many buds in there. I have to stop you. Yeah, coming to terms with the problem, right? The premature ejaculation. Yeah.
Yes.
But don't come to terms too quickly.
Exactly. So, Juliette, would you have an extended process of helping people with that?
All right, Juliette, you want to go first on this one?
Oh my God.
Okay, just a word from our sponsors.
Off you. So I think it's the importance that people put on performing, on actually making sure that they ejaculate or that there's premature ejaculation. And we're actually, the whole sexual act, like you said, Andrew, is so much more than having the genitals meet. It's all about touch. It's about look. It's about feeling the other person. It's about being intimate with them, about sharing breath, sharing eyes, sharing everything. And then once you start really becoming intimate, often the problems go away. Because there is so much stress related to performance anxiety. There's such a performance anxiety, and if that is just not in the picture, if it happens, it happens, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. Often what I'll say to my couples is, actually, I want you to try 15 minutes of touching, of genital touch, with no aim. And actually, in the beginning, I will say, I don't want you to have any penetrative sex. I just want you to have 15 minutes, put the timer on, 15 minutes of genital touch with no aim, and no climax. And then that takes the stress away from that performance anxiety. And slowly, they start building up much longer time-wise that they can
you get access to their sensory input and are able to have a form of control over your energy, because a lot of times the sensory input is they instantly take it on, and that's why they're so stimulated and done right away, depending on what the dysfunction is. Commonly in women, they close off parts of their sensory input, which is why they don't have a release during the actual penetration process.
Yeah. So for women, I tell them to start exploring themselves, their own bodies. And it doesn't necessarily need to be vagina. It can also start exploring with touch, different touch on your arm, different touch on your legs, on your breast. If you want to go for your genitals, go for it. But so often women that haven't actually climaxed haven't really explored their bodies either.
Mm-hmm.
And they've just gone into like, oh, I need to climax. I need to give this to my man. You know, they've been brought up. It's also, it's like, what have you been brought up to? What has your family taught you? Are you religion? What has your church taught you? What has society taught you? And what do you take on as your own? Although it was, you know, an imprint that you get from someone else.
So something else that one can use as an exploratory journey as a tool and a technique are feathers, fine quality artist brushes, so you can find the stimulus points.
Absolutely.
Yeah, building a kind of sensory toolkit, if you like,
Yes.
which you can have in your, you know, in your bedside table or something is I think a really important thing to have around all the time.
And this
I think
leads
we should,
the hammer and
yeah,
chisel after a moment. You'll need harder tools after a while for some of those blockages that just won't go away, persistent ones.
Yeah,
Well,
and it's also about retraining your neurotransmitters too, you know, because if you've had a life in which you've had to suppress certain feelings, then guess what happens? They kind of suppress themselves after a while. So, and bringing them back can be something of a journey. And it's in a sense, it's kind of why I alluded before about our endocrine system, is that you have to retrain your neurotransmitters to work in a different way than you've been used to. And that takes a bit of time, and it takes a bit of, you know, you need to use the tools that you can find, and they're easy to find. So
yeah, I also want to take a little time out here because before you get there, a lot of people have a lot of shame, and we probably should address this because we're talking about building a toolkit and the endocrine system. Just the mere mention of sex and what to do may actually be cause for pause for a lot of people. They don't like the idea of touching. A lot of people come onto the path of spirituality and awakening and awareness, but they still track the old fundamentalist beliefs of religion, and they track it into the stuff. And we like, this is something that I would like to address here as well, Andrew, because how does one get rid of shame? How does one get rid of shame? Because shame is something that is, tell me.
Blanket forgiveness first, and then you've got to build up the courage and the commitment and the discipline to know forgiveness is the first step, and then to determine, is it your guilt or others? And there are many different techniques and tools and tips out there that can help people shed off the many layers of guilt, but it's the inner work you got to do on yourself, and guilt is one of the hardest ones to get rid of.
It is.
Same with shame, blame, and guilt, and depression, regression, and obsession. They're the other three that come with shame, blame, and guilt. Wherever there's guilt, there's an obsession with guilt too.
Whenever I used to counsel people, we didn't have sex intimacy coaching. It's not something that's taught in psychotherapy school. It just isn't. One of my main advice is strip naked, stand in front of your partner with the lights on. See what happens. To actually see yourself, to actually see the other. And I keep going back to that handheld mirror. Juliette, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's your body. Nobody's gonna.
But you know what?
You're in charge of it.
Often that to stand naked in front of your partner, there is so much shame there.
Mm-hmm.
That might be a step too far. So what I would do is I would actually teach them to stand in front of the mirror themselves for 30 days naked.
Mm-hmm.
and time it for a minute and actually really look at every single body part, and then keep bringing it up to like 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day. And then after, you know, whatever, a few weeks of that, then definitely do this with your partner, and maybe sit in front of them, eye gaze a little bit, so they break it a tiny bit. But it's also, what I think is really good one is to be in front of your partner naked, and then to do a diet form and say, tell me one thing you love about my body, and to actually accept and hear what your partner loves about your body, which is probably the things that you don't like yourself. So it's a really good exercise to start hearing how other people see you and how your beloved sees you.
Exactly, because a lot of people tend to think of sex with their partners, and the partner has a completely different idea.
Yeah.
Completely, there's no communication. And this is why I was actually quite impressed with the erotic blueprints, because it gives people a language to speak to each other in. And that I think, more than anything else, is the biggest benefit of exploring the erotic blueprints. But that's Juliette's province, so I'm not going to rain on that parade. Juliette, please tell us about that.
The erotic blueprints. So it's kind of like we're speaking a different erotic language to each other. So there are 5 erotic blueprints. There is energetic. So people who feel a lot of energy and they like very soft touch, or touch off the body, like here, and they'll already feel it. It's also the people that will come into a room of people and will feel the energy. So if there are a lot of negative people there, they want to go away and then immediately shudder at the thought. The negative, they can also have full body orgasms without even being touched. You don't even need to go near anyone. They like anticipation. They can get into their head very often. And also one of the things is that they dissociate from their body. They leave their body sometimes. The energy gets so high that they just like almost leave their body, or they do frequently. Then there is sensual. So the sensual likes, a bit firmer touch. Sensual is all about your senses, the smell, the taste, how things feel, and touch. And this is the kind of touch they like. So sensual can also have body orgasms with just smelling a fruit or smelling a flower or tasting something. But at the same time, one of the negative traits, or one of the shadow aspect, is that they get in their head a lot. So during sex, they'll be thinking like, oh my God, do I smell down there? Have I brushed my teeth? Have I washed? Have I shaved? Oh my God, there's socks on the floor. There's that. So all these kind of things take them out of their sensuality, take them out of the act. Then there is the sexual. And the sexual is pretty straightforward. It's what we these days hear and think of what sex is. Genitals, cock and pussy, breasts, boobs, really, any sexual act. Foreplay is foreplay, but it has to end in penetration and an orgasm. So doesn't mean that they have nothing else in mind, but they really they like to feel that that every act has to finish in penetration and an orgasm. So sometimes they can be a bit less sensitive to others who are more sensual or energetic. So that can be challenging to actually just tell your partner that. Then there's kinky, so which is the blueprint that anything which is taboo turns them on. So that could be getting undressed in front of each other, because if that's something that you've never done, that could be it. It can be as much as impact play, flogging, smacking, or it could be psychological. It's just how do you treat someone? It's like, keep your eyes down. Did I tell you that you could look up at me? Look down.
No, I don't do this anymore.
He's not doing it with me, but anyway, that's how it works.
But you get
Disagree.
With kinky, they have a shadow aspect, which is guilt. They are so ashamed. They're so ashamed of this, so that they've kept it secret from most people, because they just think that there's something wrong with them, that this turns them on, that maybe they like being tied by ropes, and they've tried to hide that from their partners often. Then the fifth blueprint is a shapeshifter. So basically, shapeshifters are people that like all of them, and that can actually play in all of the blueprints, and that like all of them, or they could also have all the negative traits of them, the shadow aspects. So could, be stuck in their head about thinking that they smell, or that the socks are on the floor, leave their body like an energetic, only think about kink or sex, don't like body fluids. So it's a mixture, and that's how we learn that once you learn what your partner is and what kind of blueprint he or she is, you learn to speak the language, and then you learn how to negotiate what is best for both of you.
Excellent.
And how you can also then expand in their blueprint.
So I want to expand this conversation a little bit. And what is the most frequently unasked question that partners don't do for each other, that they should absolutely do when they choose to become intimate at a new level? Things they have to ask, but are too chicken, too ashamed, too scared to ask.
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. I suppose it could be something along the lines of, what do you like? Do you know what I like? Right? Shelley, it's not about
they all ask that, David, but it's never really answered in the first time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because because when you first get intimate with an individual, the things that are on your mind are not necessarily, you're trying to figure them out. And the worst thing is when you assume, okay? That's the worst thing. So you meet somebody and you date the individual. Some of the most perverted people are the most guilty and shut down people. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you meet, you go to a bar, and the one chick in the bar, or I don't know, wherever you go, supermarket, Walmart. Let's not talk about Walmart in this show ever again. Wherever you go, you meet a woman or a man, and the person who speaks the most and has a lot of perverted thoughts and so on, 9 times out of 10 in a one-on-one situation will be the most shut down person. And that's compensation, okay? This is compensation, and people will compensate and whatever. When you're in a situation, the worst thing to do is assume. So you would assume that the person is up for anything, okay? You'd be probably very incorrect. So these are the things that you have to actually speak and have discussions about, okay? I don't know how you feel about that, Juliette, but how does one begin that conversation?
I think what's one of the most asked for me, for my woman, is, how can I ask him to slow down, or just can I say no without hurting his feelings? And it's like, and they don't realize that they can say no, not now. Or no, could you go a bit slower? Can we slow down? Mm-hmm. Can we actually touch tonight? As women, we're conditioned to think that we need to take care of our man, and that they want penetrative sex, and that's all that they want. And the funny thing is that once you start talking to your men that way and saying, hey, darling, do you mind if we touch tonight, or if we just do some eye gazing and just do some do a massage, but my body doesn't want penetrative sex. And if you can be this honest, then it's like a whole new world opens. Men want to please us, and I think we as women assume that they always want their own pleasure, and we don't actually realize that men want us to have pleasure as well, and to be with us in that intimate way, even if there's no penetration. That's the beauty of it all.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Alex,
Assumption is the mother of all.
Yeah.
Alex, what about for you? What is the question they don't ask as part of the frequently unasked questions that everyone should ask, mostly because they're too scared to ask?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing for me is that when you're starting to go a little deeper with your partner, it's quite scary, because in order to do that, you have to be quite vulnerable. So you have to bring up the things that you think there is at least some possibility that they won't accept about you, or they won't be into, or they think is pretty odd, or something along those sort of lines. They'll be judgy, right, about it, and that's really difficult. So, and I think that the question for me that couples should ask themselves are to make sure that with each other, that they can step away from that sort of conditioned judgment to being vulnerable with their partner, and to not be judged. But you've got to find that you've got to have that discussion first, it seems to me. So to not feel like you're putting everything at risk by bringing up the fact that you like flogging someone is going to be a difficult thing to do. So it's not really a single question. It's understanding that both of you are at this point. Are you both able to do these things in a vulnerable way? And that's the question you have to ask each other in order to go deeper, it seems to me. Right. Because if one of you's not, then they're going to be judgmental.
Right. And to stop it from being a codependent experience and a co-joined experience. Big difference between codependent and co-joined. You're both joining in the experience instead of being codependent on each other's state of awareness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's
a big mistake that a lot of couples make. They become codependent at each other's state of sexual awareness, and oftentimes they're not the same sexual awareness states.
Absolutely. And I think that's also it, not to feel shame that your partner is not at the same sexuality stage as you are, and not to feel shame that you might be a bit out there and wanting different things.
But most people, it's not the out there-ness. Most people are going to try things a handful of times. It's the energy they feel off of it afterwards, which determines if fun has a repeatability factor to it.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's where guilt, shame, blame, and depression, regression, and obsession, the 6 subject matters that greatly affects everybody's sexuality. And in men, it's the obsession and the guilt and the shame and the blame. There's a different order for women. Also, if you've had sexual traumas in your youth, it changes the order in which all 6 of those subject matters affect you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's certainly true.
So I want to tap into the next frequently asked questions that partners don't ask themselves. And I want you guys to really dig deep. We've had a lot of unique answers here. And what are some of them? We're talking 5, couples that have been together long enough that they can push the envelope and they know they're not going to be insulted by pushing the envelope. What are some of those subject matters they need to broach?
Trying something new. Would you like to try something new? That's usually a touchy subject that they really should ask about, okay? So let's say you've been, okay, let's go basic. Okay, so you're in a relationship with another person for a long time, okay? There is something about the human mind which people don't understand. Human mind does not exist in monotony. It does not. The human mind is about variation. It's about variations, about highs and lows, and ebbs and flows. That's how the human mind actually was meant to operate. If you've ever seen a reading of just any of if you've ever seen a reading out of an encephalograph, you will understand the mind does not operate in this static, stagnant mode, and your body does not operate in that way either, right? But a lot of people try to make their bodies operate in that way. So in a sexual union with someone, there needs to be a little bit of variation. If there is, and for a lot of people, variation may be something simple as going slower, going faster, right? And for other people, variation may take a completely different image. You might be bringing out the hooks, you might be dragging out the leather. So it doesn't matter what it is. What happens is that when people are, you have one person whose variation is going slower, going faster, and the other person is running down to the store to get the hooks and stuff like that, you have a difference of opinion, so to speak. So you need to come to some sort of a consensus. And people ask, what people generally don't ask, what are your boundaries? What is on the table? What is off the table? Okay? What is going to be like, what are we doing that you are willing to do, and what are we doing that you are not willing to do? It's a very simple discussion to have, but does it ever happen? Not very often. I don't think so.
I notice, like, my people, some of them have been married for 30 years and probably haven't had sex the last 7 or 8 years. And they've kind of like forgotten what it's like. So my suggestion is, and often, I mean, for me, often it's the woman that will come to me and say, hey, I want to try something, you know, we're not intimate anymore. I love him dearly, but, you know, can we go on like this? I can't. So I then say, okay, well, let's actually make sure that you guys schedule in a date night once every 2 weeks. And whatever happens, you have that hour and a half, 2 hours that you don't have your phones, you don't talk about the kids, you don't just go to dinner, but you actually have conversations, and you know, and I'll give them a whole form of things to ask each other. And one of the things that, you know, I'll have my woman ask the man is, before that, even saying, hey, I'm trying this new course, and it's for us to have a better sex life. Are you interested? And most of the men say yes. But if you have come back saying, actually, we're not very interested, but then it also opens up the discussion into saying, well, what kind of intimacy would you like? Are you interested in just touching, in you know, in going to partner dance, or into doing some other kind of non-penetrative sexual or just intimate activity?
Elevated conversation here. We're having a lot of people responding in the chat room, and some of the common questions were about sexual trauma at an early age, and what are some of the advice that you guys offer that can help them begin to break out of those traumatic locked-in scenarios.
Trauma. I do a lot of trauma release with people, and I think, first of all, the most important is to acknowledge them, and to really praise them for coming up, for actually sharing what happened, because often the trauma will still be lodged in the body, and it's often a much earlier trauma. So we go back and we try to see how old the child, you know, the person was, and to speak to that part of them, and to have that part feel safe. There are a few different techniques I use on them, but I think most of all, it's actually having a safe space to talk about it.
and then to not have sex afterwards generally.
Not have to, no, not at all.
Not at all. All too often, that's the influence of sexual trauma to want to seal it so it stays in.
Yeah.
And as men or women, who doesn't matter the love, you got to know that you got to let that be. So that the next time they come, a higher form of self-trust is gained within the person too.
That
Right?
is so true. Yeah.
So
I
take
have
that
a
agenda away. Go ahead, David.
I have a slightly I just want to bring I'm going to play devil's advocate here. For people who have had sexual trauma, it has been my experience that they fall into one of three categories: those that act it out as a coping mechanism, those that bury the stuff beneath, deep way down, and it constricts their life and their behavior with others. And then you have those that shout it out loud. Okay, so I want to bring a different kind of discussion here on especially sexual trauma, because this is something that has been interesting to me for a long time. So there's an old saying that too far east can get you to the west, right? And this is where the BDSM talk comes in. You remember that last broadcast we did, okay? A lot of people look at BDSM as a kind of kink no-go zone. And especially that's the zone that they actually need to go into to help them deal with the trauma that they're experiencing. That's exactly where they actually need to go. So you've had a bad sexual experience, you've had sexual trauma, and this is not a blanket statement for everyone, but some people have been actually healed for the most part by going into that BDSM space, that space in mind where you go in there and you actually confront the demon that is stalking you. Okay, because sexual trauma is kind of like a demon that stalks you throughout your life. Okay, and if you keep running away from it, you will never beat it. It is the scariest demon that there is. Whether you're acting out, whether you're burying, or whether you're shouting it out loud, right? Face that demon. Okay, BDSM is not about violence and not violence. It is something that is it is something where you get to actually see what it is that you may be actually running from and realize that it's actually not that thing. What you think you are experiencing in mind, a lot of people attribute sexual trauma to a kind of BDSM, and they're wrong. You need to run towards the demon, not away from it. But I'm going to let Juliette chime in on this.
Well, it's so I got date raped by 5 guys when I was 18, and for years I buried it. When I was married, I buried it, and just as we were getting divorced, I saw a therapist, and things started coming out. Then a few years later, I was at a BDSM workshop, and I was getting flogged on my shoulders, and all of a sudden I felt such a release, and I knew right there and then, it's like, oh, I have to work with BDSM and I have to reenact the rape. So when I got back to London, I worked with a Dom, and we reenacted, so we duplicated the rape. And ever since then, I've had, no problems at all with, I didn't have problems with sexuality, but there was definitely a part of me that was blocked off to feeling. And by getting flogged, I reached this heightened state where I could feel all my body, and where I could actually think, where I could feel that there were parts stuck. So when I did the reenacting of the rape with the Dom in London, it just took that one time for me to get completely clear of all the charge and all the pain that was that it was still physically creating, and there were still spots in my vagina that were really hard. So all of that, you know, weeks afterwards were absolute, that completely left. Since then, I've done a lot of psychological stuff on it as well. I wrote letters to my rapists, you know, saying what has happened and then how it has withheld me from leading a normal life. And then I wrote letters from them to me, you know, apologizing and seeing what their part was in it. And you know, and all of this is actually, it just brings so much clearance to it all that now I can look back at when I was 18, 19, and just say, yeah, that happened to me, but there's no shame anymore. There's no guilt in that I brought this on, because for years, that's what I must have thought. So I was like, okay, I must have brought this on. So I buried it. I didn't speak to my husband about it. Didn't speak to anyone about it. Didn't speak to the girl that we went to that party with together. We just buried it. Both of us didn't talk to each other anymore, and that was it. And now, you know, I feel very, very happy, you know, very confident talking about it, and actually know that that it can really clear, and you can get through trauma.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about this. Okay, I think a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions, and they don't realize that that space, when you get into BDSM, you can actually act out, as John has said in the chat, in a controlled environment. Controlled, you have boundaries. Some people may need a safe word, who knows, right? In a controlled environment, the things that are inside that you need to express. And I want to just explain this in a psychological, I need to just chime in here with a little bit of psychobabble here. The things that are inside of you, the deep, dark desires that you do not express, are exactly the deep, dark desires that will impede you in life. I am telling you this, it will impede you in your relationships, it will impede you in life. Okay, there are a lot of women, we've had a lot of shows, Andrew, in 2019, yep, where women have called in and said, I want him to dominate me more. I want him to be more forceful. But what they're talking about is that they would like to feel dominated. They would. Okay? And not all women like that.
Yeah, so they can shut off.
Right?
The caveat is they could shut off.
Yes, with the caveat that they could shut off and stuff like that. A lot of people have those deep desires in them, but they keep them pent up. And I'm telling you that this is what usually causes the death in the relationship where sex is concerned. Because you will lose interest if you are not expressing yourself. Sexuality is a kind of expression. And when you deliberately if you put your hand over your mouth for a few years, you will lose the ability to speak. The muscles that you use will atrophy. Sexuality is not much different. So I would just like to say this, but I'm gonna defer to Alex and Juliette here, all right? Because you have a flogger that everybody at that convention wanted. So we're going to talk about that. So I need to, full disclosure on air, full disclosure on air. Let's full disclosure on air.
Yes, we have our floggers made to order. Let's say it that way.
Full disclosure on air. I have personally, and don't take this the wrong way, been flogged partially by Juliette and Alex, but it wasn't in any kink scene. We were just testing out the flogger because I couldn't believe that thing. Okay.
It was a pretty muscular flogger.
It is it's very thuddy. Do you have that flogger right now?
It's I can get it.
Do you want me to get, because you can't walk?
Okay.
Oh,
please, bring it down.
Please. Everybody wants to see the.
I gotta share one of my.
Keep talking.
I gotta share.
Yeah. So
Share one of my stories.
I want to explain my experience because I'm curious and I will try anything once at least of being hit by the thing that you're about to see. It's not painful.
No, it's thuddy. It's like a big. It's not painful.
And it's instant stimulation to the brain. It is instant stimulation to the brain. So for all of you out there who are thinking, look at these kinky people out there on the show right now, I just want to say to you guys that there are places in your mind that you shut that stuff off and you say, oh no, that's not me. I'm not me. It might very well be you. It might very well be you. Everything about BDSM is not something that's unsavory. It is not something that's unsavory. It's something that you can experience your darkest parts, but also the best parts of yourself as well. And
I think also, again, like with any sex, it's or any intimacy discussion about what you want to try and get out of it, and what your hard no's are. And really, I think that's one of the first things I teach is, what does no feel like in your body? And what does a yes feel like? And I have people going around saying no, and not no and because, no, I can't do this and that, but just think, what does it feel like to say no? When someone asks you out for a date, you say no and nothing else. What does it feel like? Or when someone comes close to you, you say no, too far. And then what does yes feel like? Does it really feel like yes when you want them to come close? Really, really important to know your yes and no's, and especially if you're going to be playing in BDSM and an impact play.
Ironically, before he brings this Flogger on, I want to share a story from one of my limo driving days. So my 4th week of limo driving, I got to pick people up for a level 2 fetish ball. Okay, now that was my first fetish ball that I'd ever been in. I didn't even really know stuff like that had done, and they paid me an extra $200 in the parking lot to come inside with them. Yes, and the first thing they do have is an automatic spanking machine, and I had to go into the spanking machine in my tuxedo to get into there. And I do have to say it was a very unique experience because it's an automatic spanking machine, and they set it at what they call the red level. And it has its journey to it. But anyways, so let's see this infamous Flogger here.
Okay, well, it's kind of large. So that's what they call the falls.
Mm-hmm.
So that's about what, 1/2 meter long?
60 centimeters.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and there's a handle on the end. So it weighs about 5 kilograms, actually. So which is
12.5 pounds or something.
Yeah, in old money, right? So it's quite a thing. So as you say, David, it's a bit of a. I think the woman who made it for me was really funny. She sent me an email saying, when you use this, you should be saying to people to brace themselves. So
you want to just?
I didn't get the brace talk. I didn't get the brace talk. I did not get the brace talk. However, okay. I have to admit that thing is quite a thing. That thing is.
All right, here we go. Ready? Okay.
So it's quite funny.
Because of the weight on it, it has a cushion and it's still a stimulating factor to it. And yeah, that's what you have to understand. It's like you getting hit with a big mop.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It takes a little training, a few arm curls, before you can do it. So.
But it makes a lot of noise compared to the stimulation factor to it.
Yeah. Which also has a therapeutic element to it as well.
Yes. Because then there's the afterward, and the noise that the person has the response noise to it.
Yeah. I can attest to that. It does do interesting things to your mind. And the effect is instantaneous. Look at Julia's face right now. Do you see that glowing? do you see that glow on her face?
It's so funny because you can't.
You can't
You
stop
can't- you
laughing
can't-
with a smile.
Well, you can't stop laughing, but you can't think of anything else because the thud just it takes you completely in your body.
Correct.
You leave
Correct.
your mind is just like boom, you're just feeling it, you're breathing, you're feeling it fully, and just that's it. Yeah. There's nothing else. There's no other, there's no mind chatter, there's no monkey brain.
And the glow persists. Look at the look on your face. Can you even see your face right now, Juliette? Right. So anyway, yeah. So I just wanted to deconstruct that myth because BDSM, a lot of people tend to think they miss the nuances. It's not for kinky people alone, right? It is something that you can learn a lot from. You could release a lot from it, right? You could come into yourself and into your body in a way that you could not normally. So I would just like to put that out there. What other kink is out there? Please, Juliette, Alex, tell us.
What other kink is out there?
Well, I'm finding myself actually, and it's interesting because Juliette, who naturally is Dom, we're both naturally pretty Dom, but one of the things that we've been talking about is what they call shibari, Japanese rope tying. And what's fascinating about that, apart from its aesthetic, which I find really fascinating, is Juliette has said that she feels when she's tied up that, well, can you explain what you feel then?
So we went to this private class, and the woman taught both Alex and me to tie, but at one point he just kind of took over. So he did this fishtail and basically tied my legs together from my waist all the way down to my ankles, and it looked like a fishtail like that. And the feeling of being constrained and having that rope around me actually felt really safe. It just had me feel like I was. It's a bit like being a baby and being swaddled. Yeah, it's a really comforting feeling. I mean, more so than for me, it wasn't so sexually stimulating, but it was really, I felt just I could really drop into my body. And again, the monkey mind and the chatter stopped so that I could really be present for what was happening and the sensations, and I could name every feeling that I was having, every sensation that was passing through my body.
I think the thing that comes out of that for me, just to pick up on what David said earlier on, is that in that context, if you have the right person that you're working with in that way, and they are very conscious of what's going on, the person, as Juliette described, can drop into their own body and feel really safe in doing so. There's a responsibility on the part of, I'll call it the person in the Dom or master kind of role, to be very, is to preserve that space. And the more that they can do that, the more safe someone who is in the submissive role is going to feel. And that allows them to dive into their own body and not to feel shame about that, and to just know that nothing's off the table. And that really is quite an enabling kind of moment, it seems to me.
Which is beautiful because they can let go in a way that they often have never experienced. But you see that the Dom actually is the most surrendered role because we're in service. To the sub and whatever is happening in his or her body. Yeah, and just making sure that we always are that step ahead of them and just feeling into them. And it becomes such a beautiful interplay if done well.
Consciously.
If done consciously.
That's such a misperceived state about the relation between the Dom and the sub.
Yeah.
And so many people think it's your torturer because they've had whatever traumatic scenario in the past, or from whatever it is, the fantasy they created in their own mind about how it is or isn't. And that relationship between the Dom and the sub, it's a very intimate relationship where the Dom does have to be 1, 2, and 3 steps ahead of the person so that they can provide the experience.
Absolutely.
And I think the barriers for some people where they might feel somewhere in their heart that they want to try something like this one of the things that it can bring up is the impression, the completely false impression that it's abuse. And of course, the moment you mention the A word, right, then you're going to have all kinds of things come up at that point, and that is a real barrier to enabling yourself to drop into that situation. And it is such a shame that it's perceived and as sometimes perceived as abuse, sometimes, to be fair, rightly so, but it's rare, much rarer than people think. And that but it can be portrayed as abuse as well. You know, you often see that. I mean, and don't get me started, but 50 Shades of Grey was the most false BDSM film I've ever come across. You know, you had and of course it's meant that there is this sort of fake news about it. So it's kind of, but grappling with the idea that it's abuse is also in of itself a barrier to those things. So it takes work sometimes to get yourself over that, and that takes trust with the person that you want to engage with in that sort of scene. And I think where if you think of it as abuse, that's going to bring up other examples of abuse that one might have experienced in one's life. And Juliette was brave enough to mention what she did, and then all you're doing is recreating that trauma in a different context. So it can be a very exponential thing to get around, and not altogether easy, to be honest.
All right, so we're going to open up to calls right now. So everybody that's got your hand up and everybody that wants to have a chance of being a caller, we're going to take a couple callers here. So everyone, if you want to have a chance to be in the wheel of callers, go ahead and click on raise your hand. So let's see how we got a bunch of people raising their hand already. Robert, let's spin up that wheel of callers and see who our first question is and wants to talk to us about sexuality.
Alrighty, first person will be Sion. Sion.
We lost you, Robert. Sion, are you there? Yeah, we can't hear him, Robert. I think we lost you.
Yep, I see that. Sion, we have you unmuted. Okay, going on, Lily Hayes.
Lily, are you there?
Oh my gosh, I am here. This is a bit of a treat. I get to have a chat to you 2 times in a week, I think it's been, or just over a week now. This is brilliant.
Just over a week, yes. So what question did you want to give to the group here?
So I would like to touch on the sexual trauma thing a little bit deeper from my personal experience, and just to ask, I guess, a little bit more advice about how to progress through releasing the energy from a lot of multiple partners. I definitely went through an extremely active period where I was self-harming via toxic sexual situations. There was a lot of pleasure involved too, but yeah, there's a lot of energy that I have attached to me from past lovers as a result. So I was just wanting to hear your insight into something like that.
Okay, who is the question directed towards? Me, myself?
It really is a question to the collective of all of you there. It's just about, I guess, sort of how to be able to release that past attached sexual energy attached to the escapades that I went on, because there were a lot of partners across the years.
Okay, so I guess I'll take a stab at this one. So the thing about that we haven't touched on necessarily in the broadcast is that there's an intimate aspect of sexuality. A lot of people tend to believe that, especially when it's penetrative sex leading to an orgasm, a lot of people tend to believe that this is just something that happens in the body, and that is just not correct. So yeah. I understand where you are coming from, because the residue of people that you have been with stays with you and does affect you over long periods of time. and it's not something that water can wash off. Am I correct?
No. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so I suspect I'm going to cross over to Juliet's section here, but I'm going to say a lot of women have tried. Do you know what jade egg practices are?
Jade egg practices, yes. I wrote in the comments just before. I don't have a jade egg, but I have a rose quartz yoni egg and also a rose quartz wand as well. And I've been trying to incorporate that into my routine to nourish that area.
So I'm gonna answer you on many different levels there. Physically
Okay.
speaking, the cleansing aspect, and well, we all know what the physical cleansing
Yeah.
aspects are, just on a basic physical level, right?
Yes.
But a lot of people do a lot of reflective meditation, and they do a period of celibacy, okay? And the
I
celibacy is
think
not
that's
like
what's needed.
the period of celibacy is not like I'm going to say something to you. It shouldn't be something that is like 2 years down the road. Okay,
Yeah.
a month
Yes.
off of sexuality is enough to clean your system out. Don't underestimate what your body can do. Okay,
Yes.
what your mind
Yes.
in connection with your body can do. So just a month, and this is to men as well, because you've asked the question from a woman's perspective.
Yes.
There are a lot of men out there who do need cleaning. They need cleaning badly, mentally,
Yes.
physically, spiritually, otherwise.
And I
And
was a
I'll tell you,
magnet for those types of men.
yeah, and I'll tell
Yeah.
you what causes the for men the mixture of stuff tends to they tend to be okay with it. Where men, as far as they're concerned, but
Yeah.
here's how they know when something is wrong. And I'm speaking to the men before I answer you, Lily. For
Yes,
the
that's okay.
man, you know that something is wrong when you're having sex with a woman or you're having sex and your desire switches off in mid intercourse.
Yes.
That happens to a lot of men.
Yeah.
They don't know where it's coming from. And that's because what is happening is that there are too many minds, according to the Japanese, that's what they call it. Too many
Yeah.
minds. You engage in a physical act with your partner, but then you have many different partners cutting across in terms
Yes.
energetically inside your mind. And it
Yes.
switches off your sexual desire. And I'm expecting that something like that is happening with you as well, Lily. Am I correct?
Yes, it is. Definitely. I can
Right.
100% resonate.
So that's the first aspect. A period of celibacy, 1 month is enough to take care of that. And when I say celibacy, I don't mean celibacy in the sense of I'm not having penetrative sex. Somebody asked why. I'm going to explain that to you. 1 month is
Yeah.
enough to take care of that. And I'll tell you the reason why 1 month, I say 1 month is for you, it would be the normal month that your cycle goes through. But
Yes.
celibacy has to be a holistic celibacy, which means you're
Yes.
not touching yourself either, right? This
Yes.
is what is recommended in the Kama Sutra. Okay,
Yes.
for those of us who have read the book and not just looked at the pictures, right?
Yes.
So it's the normal cycle of a woman, right? But men have a
Yes.
cycle as well. It's not 21 days, right? It's more like 33 or something around those, something around there.
Yeah.
Okay, but for women it's usually around 21 days, but let's just round it off to 30 days, and
Yeah.
you run through your cycle and you clean your mind, right? Because what
Yes.
you are trying to do, you're not trying to reset yourself to a state where you're a virgin or anything like that.
Gosh,
What you're
no.
trying to do is you're trying to pull apart the various influences. So now that's the physical aspect in terms of the celibacy aspect. The mind is
Yes.
another thing. You have, when you encounter anyone, there is a residue that is left in your psyche. There is a
Oh,
residue that is
100%.
always left, right? Like I met Juliette and Alex, the residue is still there. Anyway, as I was saying,
Oh, look, if I had the blessing of meeting you all, that's a thing that would last across the lifetimes, meeting your beautiful
Right.
souls. So come on.
Right. So the rest, when you meet anyone, there's a little residue that lingers there.
Yeah.
Theoretically, people are supposed to naturally meditate. Okay.
Yes.
People, you don't need to go to an expensive person to learn how expensive elaborate place to learn how to meditate. Before all technology and civilization developed to the stage, developing man knew how to meditate naturally.
Oh, absolutely.
What is happening right now is that there's no space for that. Okay.
Yes.
I just spoke to a friend of mine before the show who says we moved out of London. We're in the country now, right? So you want to get to that space. You want to get to that space where the mind is free to divest itself of the residue of people, of things, of experiences, and so on. Okay.
Yeah.
So meditation, keeping yourself silent so that the mind could follow its natural pattern and cleaning itself. Your body does not need you to clean it necessarily. When you evacuate your bowels or whatever, it has a cleaning mechanism. Your mind also has a cleaning mechanism. If it is that you stop for a moment and just stop, stop. Let the mind clean itself. And if you want to help the mind clean itself, practice mindfulness or meditation. Okay?
Yes.
That's the second aspect. For the spiritual aspect, I would have to, well, for women, chief among that is the Jadic practices. And there is something called a yoni steam. Do you know what that is?
Yes, I have looked into that, and I really enjoy a bit of alchemy play. So I think that that's something that I will be delving into a bit more, especially now that you've mentioned that too. So that sounds good.
So a yoni steam, for those of us who don't know what that is, it's a little structure. It looks like a toilet seat with a little triangle in it, a little triangle aperture in it, right? And you put a mixture of herbs, you let that steam rise up. You, for want of a better way of saying this, you steam your vag.
Yes, pretty much. That's it. You think about.
You
I'm sure you can find a better way.
Well, you think about going back to the ancient times where a lot of female oracles actually used to use steam baths underneath the vagina to be able to channel divine energies and forms of communication with certain things. So it's really interesting that it also has such a therapeutic way to be able to heal some really nasty stuff that can linger for a while. So thank you for bringing that up again.
So you could steam, you could use a yoni steam, and that actually has actually helped a lot of women. So a lot of people a lot of women don't practice vaginal self-care.
Yes.
Juliette, I'm going to shut up.
No, you're doing great. I love it.
Leave that to you. Right? So I'm going to shut up. So there is yoni steam, there's the Jadic practices, but I just answered you on the layers that I know. You want to reset the self, and you want to disperse the energy that you've had before. Also, if you are intensely spiritual, you might want to practice a couple of the shamanic practices. I'm going to let Andrew answer that with regard to dispersing the energy around you. But ball to you, Juliette. Take it.
Oh, thank you. You nailed it.
Juliette, go ahead.
Well, I'm wondering, what haven't you said to these people that you've had sex with? So that's one of the dyads, or one of the practices I give my my clients is, we'll go forwards and I'll keep pulling. I'll say, tell me what you haven't said. And then it could be anything, I often, if I'm not around, I get them to go into nature and to, if you're angry, and you don't have to name the person, but you can just say, you really hurt me by doing this, or I felt very used, or I didn't want to have sex and yet I allowed it. And saying, I was angry at you. I just wanted to be pleased. I mean, all these kind of things. And actually set your timer for 20 minutes and just rant and let it go and give it to Mother Earth, if you can. If you get, if you start crying, that's fine. If you can be, on grass or with your feet and with your hands on the earth, it really helps. I mean, I do it with like my palms or my fists in the grass sometimes when it gets really bad, and it just it's like doing a poo. It's like getting all that backed out. It's like doing a proper going to the bathroom properly
Oh.
and just letting it go, because it's
Yep.
like all this stuff that we have that we back up and that we don't say, it keeps resending in our system, and that's actually what resentments are.
Yeah.
So that would
definitely.
be definitely one of my things. Like you said, the rose quartz is actually a beautiful crystal to bring in instead of jade egg. That's fine with the wand.
Okay.
David's giving you lots of things, but that definitely is to what haven't I said? And then at one
Yeah.
point, perhaps with help from someone, really start delving into why it is that you attract these people, and what it is
Yes.
that you want to, what do you want to nourish, what do you want to gain from being with them?
Absolutely.
How old
Yes.
is that little one that actually wants love?
And that's exactly it. She was between the ages of 4 and 8.
Yeah.
And yeah, I still
Okay, so
because
slow
I was
down.
yeah, thank you.
So you're
Thank you.
between the age of 4 and 8.
Yes.
I want
And
you to
that's
feel
where
that. I want you to go back to the time that you were between 4 and 8. Feel yourself in that little body. Know that you're safe here. What is she seeing?
she sees that she found the love and acceptance and support that she was so longing for so long. And that is a really, really beautiful and very calming thing to feel, because she wasn't accepted by any of the systems. There was a lot of trauma going on for her parents as well as her entire family. The ancestral trauma was very deep, especially during those times. So it's nice to now be here, and we're shedding our ancestral karma, our ancestral pain.
Absolutely.
We're breaking cycles.
So you now
Thank you.
can help her. You can help your own 4 to 8-year-old.
Yes.
And by doing that, by wrapping yourself around her and surrounding her with that golden love and that light, heal that. And then also realize that you'll be healing your ancestors before you and those that will come after you.
And what a gift. What a blessed gift to have the resources to start making these steps. You know, last week chatting with Andrew, I, potentially won't reach the infinite, complete, polished gem at the end, but my goodness, I can see the sparkle coming through already, and that's enough.
Beautiful.
I am enough. Thank you.
Yes,
I
you
really,
are.
really appreciated that.
You're welcome. You are more than enough.
That's right. You are more than enough. Thank you so much for calling in. All right.
No,
Again,
thank all of you.
once again, if you want to ask questions and come on, you got to go ahead and raise your hand. All right, Robert, let's spin up the wheel of callers and see who's going to be on next.
Hey, Sion, we're giving you another shot. Are you there?
Sion, are you there? Oh, he's still having mic issues.
Yep. Moving on. Okay, Melanie Lewis, you are unmuted with Sex Talk.
Melanie, are you there? Melanie.
Oh, hi.
Hi,
Hello.
where are you calling from today?
Gosh, I'm calling from Scotland. Gosh, it's such a lovely surprise to communicate with you all.
Welcome to the show. What kind of sex questions do you have for us today?
Well, I don't know if I have a direct question. I certainly fit into all 5. So, I can, yeah. So, but the last part of that last conversation was, it is pure alchemy, what just took place between you and her, which is lovely. And I felt all of it through myself. And then it was like, I am enough. And when I was meditating the other day, I just saw this cardboard in front of me, and it just written on it, "I am not enough." And I really enjoy exploring my sexuality. And I've made a point of not feeling guilty. And then if I've gone too far, then I've done things to cleanse and clear myself to come back into a place of peace. I don't know what I'm trying to say here, really. But it's definitely not feeling enough yet. I feel very much the opposite as well. There's that little bit. And she explores into interesting places. And I live in the middle of nowhere. So the other day I went into I kind of did alchemy through my body. And, you know, my light, I felt like I just like spread light for like 20 miles. And I just drew in 3 men in a week. I had penetrate, well, only a tiny bit with one, but it was just pure beauty. It was just so much fun. It was really exciting. I love exploring the energy, and I'm very curious about sexual energy. I would like to do sexual alchemy. I'd like to go really high with that. I think it could be incredibly healing for the body. And it certainly is with sensuality and touch, and, you know, whether it's hard, soft, through the mind, thought, no touch. But I've done sound tantra, and I very, very much like to go deeper into, I don't just go deeper into the cells, just go deeper inside. I don't know. I'm very curious about sexuality. I think it's an incredibly powerful force.
Well, Juliette, what advice do you have for a person that just wants to go deeper into the alchemical process, someone that's already well on the journey? And this could help.
It sounds like you are very much on the journey. I wanted to say something about what you started with.
Yeah.
Not enough and enough. So the polarity of that, it's where, you know, where we can actually feel both of them and not have any charge with either of them. Like, now I want to feel like not enough, and now I can feel I am enough. And I think it's only when you have a real negative charge to either of them, and it doesn't sound like you have, that's where you get pulled back. So I just wanted to quickly touch upon that.
No, thank you. I do get charged by not being enough, because it holds me back. And I find that very tiring for my spirit.
Okay. So can I do something with you?
Sure.
All right. I want you to close your eyes and feel what it feels like to be not enough. And then any thoughts, sounds, images, body sensations that come up,
yeah, I feel,
say them in the space.
I feel scared.
Okay, thank you. Now let that go. Now take a deep breath in and exhale. Feel I am enough. Feel it fully and feel it deeply. Magnify it and dramatize it. And then tell me any body sensations, thoughts, images, or emotions that come up.
It's actually more challenging.
Let it go. Take a deep breath in. Go back to I am not enough. Feel it fully. Feel it deeply. Magnify it and dramatize it. And say something about it.
just like stomping her feet and like screaming with her hands up, you know, it's just like pure frustration.
Thank you. Now let that go. Feel I am enough. Feel it fully. Feel it deeply. Dramatize it, magnify it, make it as real as you possibly can. And say something about it.
It's like, you know, I'm like connected to everything. Yeah, it's just enormous. It's beautiful. I'm at the very center, just feeling everything.
Thank you. Now let that go. Feel I am not enough. Feel it fully. Feel it deeply and completely. Magnify it and dramatize it and make it as real and as strong as you possibly can.
This time I'm like turning my back to it with a cheeky smile, like Betty Boo, like shaking her butt.
Thank you. Now let that go. Now I want you to take a deep breath in. Feel I am enough. Feel it fully. Feel it deeply and completely. Magnify it and dramatize it and make it as real and as strong as you possibly can. Tell me what's coming up.
Now I feel like I'm a tree and I feel really deeply rooted in, like really deep in. And I'm just still and strong.
Thank you. Now take a deep breath in and out and let it go. Now in the next breath, I want you to feel I'm not enough and I am enough at the same time. So take a deep breath in and feel I'm not enough and feel I am enough. Take an exhale and tell me what happened between them.
What I saw was the yin yang sign, and it was just like they kind of like danced together. It was like, you know, there's light in the darkness and darkness in the light.
Beautiful, thank you. I'm going to go one round. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Feel I am not enough. Feel it fully. Feel it completely and as strong as you can. Magnify it. Dramatize it. Make it as real as you possibly can. Tell me something about it.
Well, this time it's just like the old in me has turned up and she's just taken the little girl and just holding her and just holding her and making her feel really safe.
Thank you. Let it go.
Powerful healing, powerful healing. Thank you so much for calling in. We want to get somebody else to call in, but thank you so much for calling in. All right, Robert, let's spin up the wheel of colors and see who we got next.
All righty. Jesse, you are unmuted.
Jesse, are you there?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, where are you calling from today?
I'm calling from California.
Welcome to the show. What questions you have for sexuality to us?
Well, I probably have too many questions to be able to put together in my mind.
Take the first three.
What did you think about the little techniques that were just done?
So, well, I cried. I was having a moment.
Were there deep healing tears?
Yeah, I think it brought up a lot. I wasn't quite prepared for the phone. I wasn't quite prepared to be live just for this 1 second, but I can give myself a moment in silence real quick.
Just take a deep breath and just relax a second and know we're all gentle people here, and we're all here to help everyone to be on their path to healing, to self-nurturing, self-love, self-regeneration, all those aspects. So as you're grounding yourself, Juliette, Alex, do you have anything you'd like to say?
It's not my field. This is Juliette's field. This trauma release stuff.
Yeah, I would really say, are you sitting in a chair?
I am.
Okay, so feel your butt in the chair.
Okay.
Are your legs on the floor?
Yes,
your feet on the
ma'am.
floor? Okay. So really feel your feet, almost like open the bottom of your feet like you have zippers, like unzipping the soles of your feet, and then drawing the energy of Mother Earth into you, and letting anything that you want to let go of, let it come through your feet and into the earth. Now that you're in a safe space here with us. Breathe deeply in. And just see whatever wants to arise. We're all here. We can witness you.
I'm feeling, I think what comes up for me is like maybe a lack of experience or a lack of being in touch with myself. I feel really cut off from myself.
Thank you. I hear you. I hear that you feel really cut off from yourself. And a lack of experience. Feel into that part of yourself. How old is she?
I don't know. Okay. I know I have things that has happened when I was a kid that I know happened, but I don't feel like I have like a in-person memory of it, and I don't feel like I never like talked about myself as being molested, even though I know I have been, or I know I witnessed my sister being molested, and then throughout my life, things have just happened in just my relations to, especially men that were older, seem to find a way to take advantage and mess with my mind.
Take a breath. Take a breath. Take a breath in. Make sure that you can just send that energy back into the earth, and take a breath in and out. Okay, so where are you? Close your eyes for a minute, and I want you really to feel your body. You feel your feet on the floor, your butt on the chair. Are you feeling any tightness anywhere?
Yeah, I have a extreme amount of tightness in my chest.
Okay, it's in your chest. Thank you. So what shape is it in your chest, the tightness?
If
it were a shape, just give it a shape.
I feel like it's just a solid rock, a meteor, or
Great, thank you. So if it were to have a color, what color would that rock have, that meteor?
gray, maybe.
Gray,
rock.
I hear you. Yeah, gray. And
Metal.
is it metal? How heavy would it be?
It just feels like any heavier and my whole body's gonna crack in half.
I hear you.
Sharp.
Now, I want to talk to that part of you, okay? So that part of you is an aspect of yourself. So what we're going to try to do is talk to it and see what goal it has for you. Are you willing to do that?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Just know that you're safe, and I'm guiding you all the way through this, and we're all holding space for you. Okay. All right. So Jessie, I want you to turn to your aspect and really feel into that space. How heavy is it, and how tight? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you feel that pressure? 1 being
10.
very little, 10. Okay.
Sometimes it's a 10. Right now, maybe a 6.
Okay, a 6. And what is it? Is it withholding you from doing anything in life? What can't you do because of it?
It's hard to breathe.
All right. Okay, so close your eyes, and I want you to really focus in on that tightness, that meteor, that rock. Okay, and turn to it and say, aspect, I know that you're a part of me. And I want to communicate with you. So please manifest yourself as fully as possible so that I can do that. So turn to that part of you and just say, what goal do you have with me? For me, with this manifestation, this tightness in my chest, this rock. And the answer can come up in a body sensation, in a thought, in an image, or in an emotion.
I feel like I just want to float away in water.
All right. Thank you.
Like just swim and play.
Great. So thank you. And really thank your aspect, because your aspect here is giving you answers why it's so tight. So in your mind, in your imagination, you and your aspect together create a situation in which you can swim away and play, and where that is completely realized. So that goal is achieved. So feel it, visualize it, be in that water playing. That goal is completely realized. And once you're there, let me know.
I can feel like dolphins all around me, kissing me on my chest.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. So, from this place, ask your aspect, what other goal do you wish to achieve for me? What more spiritual, what higher goal do you wish to achieve for me?
Just to love myself as I am right now.
Beautiful. Thank you. So together, in your mind, in your imagination, you and your aspect together create a situation in which you love yourself completely and fully. Step into it, feel it completely, feel it fully, experience it 100% achieved. Smell it, taste it, feel it. Once you're there, let me know. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so from this place, you turn to your aspect and you ask, what other goal do you wish to achieve for me that's even higher, that's more important, and that's more spiritual than this?
What other goal? Not to be afraid to explore my sexual desires. Or let myself feel pleasure, that it's okay.
Great. So is that a higher goal than to love yourself fully? Or is that an equal goal or a parallel goal? So let's just say that you have achieved together with your aspect that you love yourself, that you allow yourself pleasure sexually. You're there, you're in that space. Now, what higher and more important, more spiritual goal does your aspect wish for you? Is there anything or is there nothing?
I feel like I kind of hit a blank space.
Great. What does that blankness feel like? Is it light? Is it emptiness?
So I'm like a little anxiety behind my shoulders, like a ledge or a diving board, or
Okay.
like an unknown, like diving into the unknown kind of feeling.
So together with your aspect, dive into that unknown. Feel it fully. Experience it fully. Like it's 100% achieved. And from there, what higher goal, what more important and more spiritual does your aspect wish for you?
I just feel like it's asking me to slow down and integrate something.
Beautiful. So together with your aspect in your mind, you create a situation in which you slow down and integrate everything. See it 100% achieved. Feel it fully. And from that point, from that anchoring into that space, you turn to your aspect and you ask, what higher goal, what more spiritual and more important goal do you wish to achieve for me?
To set it free.
Right. So together, you create a situation, you and your aspect, where you set it free.
Huh.
Feel that fully. Feel it completely. And once you're there, let me know. So from that place, ask your aspect if there's anything else that he wants to achieve for you, which is higher and more spiritual, or if there's nothing.
I'm sitting in the sun and I feel like that's all I need to do is just sit in the sun.
Great.
Just let the sun bathe me right now.
So feel that sun ray, feel that warmth on your body. And feel and step into that consciousness and have that emanate out of you to the left, far, far away. And have that consciousness of those rays of sun and that warmth, have that emanate out of you to the right, far, far away. In front of you, far, far away. Behind you into infinity. Above you, high into the sky. And below you, deep into the depths. Have it permeate you. Have it fill every cell of your body. And then let it cascade out of you to your left, to your right, in front of you, behind you, to the top and to the bottom. Breathe it deeply into you and know that this is always a space that you can come back to.
I'm just laughing. I'm laughing, uncontrollably laughing.
Good.
I just feel like a kid.
So how are you feeling about everything now?
I just want to thank you for being with me, present with me. I've watched you, I've listened to you, I've seen these episodes, and I've sat there and felt it, and now I really feel it. And I'm nothing but gratitude.
You're welcome.
Nothing but
Remember
gratitude.
that this is really a place you can go back to anytime.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having the courage to call in.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much, Jesse, for calling in. All right, we're going to move to a special part of our show now. We're going to have Juliette read out the sexual mistreatment document. It's a new document we're going to be handing out to people publicly. It's one that has been floating around privately for some time. This document was created by one of my incredible mentorship students, Martina Grubmuller, as part of her great assembling of healings that she went through and created as a document so many, many more people could go. So Juliette, do you have the document, the link to it?
I do, yes.
Okay.
I have it in front of me.
Just take a couple breaths, because that was just a really big healing you did on Jesse. And I know there's a lot of people that are going to benefit.
Jesse, drink water. Sorry, I forgot to say. Drink a lot of water immediately.
And when you do healings like this, there's a euphoria at the end. And she's going to have that euphoric smile going on for her a while. When she comes back to listen to this, it's going to be followed up by a document like this that has been able to help her take that journey even farther. So whenever you're ready, Juliette, and what we'll do is we'll turn off our video so people can just focus on you.
Great. Okay.
Yep.
Sexualness treatment to the future to connect to higher consciousness, dragon energy. I, in this ever-present moment of now, choose to engage my hindsight and foresight for the express purpose of sending a treatment to myself to heal and to awaken my authentic expression of sacred sexualness as my birthright and legacy. As part of my great dream time awakening and raising myself to levels of higher consciousness beyond my mind, my controls, my judgments, I am ready to accept the responsibility that I can heal myself, my communion with my sexualness in past, present, and future, any trauma, any situation, any frequency. I commit to be sexually present, sexually expansive, to heal, nurture, play, create with, and through my physical body, my DNA instrument. I, as a signature frequency of the now, I choose to acknowledge that there are programs inside me that will try to take me and my body off that journey. I now project to myself in the future the turning off the sympathetic and parasympathetic programs of self-defeat, self-deprivation, and all the other self-defeating habit patterns that take us away from having the greater experience. As I have been acutely aware of my ancestors, parents, and other people's sexual insanities, I now practice opening my chakras beyond their parameters of sexual insanity and not entangle with them empathetically without contracting, closing, and hiding, but rather perceiving the sexual insanity and expanding and opening beyond it. What energy, space, and consciousness can I and my body be to receive sexually beyond all of the limitations of this global narrative that I have made my own? All of my controls, all of my insanities, and beyond this reality with total ease. And everything that does not allow me to perceive, know, be, and receive what that is, I now destroy and uncreate all of it and dissipate and release it from my body and my frequency. Universe, show me what would it take to have total sacred sexual peace, and what would it take to have my sacred sexuality reality? Everywhere that I have been punished, crucified, cauterized, judged, tortured, condemned, sexually stimulated away from the joy of bodies, I now revoke, recant, rescind, renounce, denounce, destroy, and uncreate all of this from all of those lifelines and dissipate and release everything that has ever been done to my body to kill, to hurt, to harm, to judge, to shut down, to make sick the sexual kindness of bodies. Dissipate and release. All of the light versions of myself in this and other lifetimes, dimensions, time streams, and galaxies that are telling me that I am sexually insane, that I am sexually crazy, that are designed to keep me away from the joy of sexualness, with bodies, as well as the judgments of me that invite entities, I now all revoke, recant, rescind, renounce, denounce, destroy, and uncreate all your commitments, oaths, vows, fealties, communalities, swearings, buying, and blinding contracts to any and all of them throughout all lifetimes, dimensions, and realities. All of the sexual judgments and sexual difficulties that my body is aware of in other people's bodies and universes that I am not acknowledging as my body's awareness, I now begin to dissipate, release, and destroy and uncreate this, please, all of this now. I'm asking for the joy of having a body that will deliver me the pleasure, the ecstasy, the intensity, the sacred recreation of everything the body has to offer, as well as the communion and union with my dragon teachers to reach those higher levels of consciousness. Everywhere I have only scratched the surface of what my body has to offer. For whatever reason, I now destroy and uncreate it, please. All of the sexual consciousness that my body is capable of facilitating, I am now willing to allow it to do so. I listen to my body, communicate with my body, and not control my body out of awareness or control my body into reality that I've just decided is relevant or important. All of the sexual potencies, sexual powers, sexual abilities that I have disavowed so they could be used again, so they couldn't be used against me and they couldn't be used against others, I now revoke, recant, rescind, renounce, denounce, destroy, and uncreate. I destroy and uncreate all distractor implants such as blame, shame, and guilt, and all charge and polarity with regards to pornography, sex, sexuality, sexualness, sensuality, and copulation. Everything that doesn't allow me to perceive, know, be, and receive my ability to transform all energies through open sexual possibilities, I destroy and uncreate. Everywhere I was sexually present in the past, sexual potent and sexually creative, and were judged dynamically for it, I now revoke, recant, rescind, renounce, denounce, destroy, and uncreate all of that now. All the sexual energies that I eliminate to feel more human, more like my parents, to fit in, to not stand out, to not make others uncomfortable, to not be too powerful, to not be uncomfortable, to never step into true leadership that I have come here for. I now transmute, transform, transcend into joy, bliss, choice, creation, expansion, possibilities, and contribution. Excuse me. What energy, space, and consciousness can I and my body be to give and receive sexually with total ease, joy, and glory? What energy, space, and consciousness can I and my body be to choose sacred sexualness to transform my body, my life, my world? I now focus onto my spirit eye, between the eyebrow, and allow my left and right brain to come into harmony and form synaptic connections and create a superhighway from the brain to the heart, dropping the brain into the throat, switching off the medulla oblongata at the back of the neck and allowing the brain to sink into the heart, down into the tailbone, exploding the photonic light energy into the heart to radiate out 1,000,000 miles up and down the spine, right and left, back and front, connecting to the central sun and all the way down into the earth, grounding the totality of my I am into this physical body. I see my crown chakra, my third eye, all of my energy centers, bringing in that potentiality of the past being in a sacred moment, knowing full well that the future me is going to be going through even more sacred moments. I'm allowing all multiple versions of myself in the past, present, and future to enforce my rules, orders, procedures on sacred neutral sexualness, fortifying my sacred sexual reality to remain aware and sovereign to what it wants to get in and out of my frequency, internally and externally. The more that I begin to practice the skill of sending a treatment to my future selves, more of my versions of myself are aligning to this process. This will raise my frequency thousands-fold. No longer but a handful of moments will raise. I have at any moment a conscious awareness to accept the sacred sexual energy into me. I now fully accept this energy as part of my past, present, and future self, of simultaneously existing, who has this intention of using this sacred sexual energy to raise my consciousness, my vibration, my frequency, so my great work has a great impact on mine and other lives in the collective consciousness. Take a deep breath, even deeper, and say, I now accept that energy into the very structure of the cranial sacred pulse, all of my chakras, my very bone marrow and blood. I'm a past, present, future being simultaneously existing. And so it is.
Oh, powerful reading. Thank you so much. We've had a lot of people going through just powerful journeys just from hearing you reading that. Any reflections that you have now that you've kind of gone through this journey, and anything you'd like to add?
Besides my coughing, it brought up a lot of my throat stuff. Really interesting, right?
Talks like this are created for that journey, so people can see what's still in the body.
It's crazy, right? It's like, oh, I thought I cleared all of that, but I can see there's a lot of old stuff coming up. So really beautiful, beautifully written.
Yes. Thank you so much. Why don't you give people a way to get a hold of you too?
Absolutely. I have a website. It's called, sorry, www.feelfullyu.com. So that's feelfullyu.com. And otherwise, they can find me on Facebook, Juliette Karaman, Karaman, and Juliette is French spelling with double T-E. And that's it pretty much. I mean, Facebook and my website.
Thank you. Alex, would you like to give people get a hold of you too?
That'll be fine. They can get hold of me through Juliette. Actually, so that'll be fine. Okay.
Thank you so much. And David, there you are. Any last words you'd like to add? You're muted, David.
No, this was actually quite a fun first show as usual, Juliette and Alex, and I will be seeing you guys this year a lot.
Okay.
Juliette, Alex, hang on. We're going to go into the breakout room and have a quick conversation afterwards. All right, everybody, thank you so much. Next week, we will be back with another show. Stay tuned, stay prepared, and keep loving yourself.
that we must just be on about connection.
Okay.
Each different level of reality is true.
A galactic historian is a person that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma.
Nudge, nudge. It's the Holy Grail. Improvise. Mysterious. It's counter psychic intelligence.
Why is DNA farming of this star cluster so important?
Because we do manifest our reality. We do create our reality.